New York is a city of over 20 million people. One of the richest, most powerful economic hubs in the world. And right now, it can't keep a pizza shop alive. Across the city, Papa John's locations are quietly shutting down. No headlines, no press conferences. Just locked doors, and a piece of paper taped to the glass. Workers show up for their shift and find out on the spot. Customers walk in, expecting dinner, and walk away confused. One location at a time. The lights go out. At first, it looks like a company problem. A bad quarter, weak sales, maybe poor management. But that explanation doesn't hold. Because this isn't just Papa John's. The same pattern is repeating across fast food, retail, and restaurants all over New York. Something deeper is breaking. Something structural. And when a simple, low-cost business like pizza can't survive in a city like this, you have to ask a much bigger question. What exactly is still able to survive in New York? Fast food is not really about food. It's a financial system. What you see as a simple pizza shop is actually a layered business structure designed to run on precision. At the top, you have the corporation. They own the brand, the logo, the marketing, the menu. They control the system, but they don't carry the risk. On the ground, you have the franchise owner. They pay for everything else. The rent, the workers, the insurance, the equipment, the daily operations that determine whether the store survives or shuts down. Two separate entities. Two separate balance sheets. And that difference changes everything. Because the franchise model is built on extremely thin margins. Most locations are not printing money. They're just barely staying alive, month to month. A typical store might generate a few $100,000 a year. But after rent, labor, food costs, and fees, what's left is often razor thin. That means the system only works if everything stays balanced. If costs rise slowly, voice generated by VB.VN, and revenue keeps up, the model survives. But if just one variable shifts too far, rent goes up faster than sales, wages increase without matching demand, or costs stack all at once, the math breaks. And when the math breaks, the store doesn't adapt. It disappears. That's the hidden reality behind every closed location. Not a sudden failure, but a slow squeeze. Until there's nothing left to squeeze. So the real question isn't why one chain is struggling. It's this. What changed in the system that pushed thousands of these businesses past the breaking point? Costs didn't rise slowly. They didn't come one at a time. They hit all at once. First, rent. In New York, commercial rent has stayed high, even as foot traffic became unstable. For a small franchise, that's a fixed cost you can't escape. You pay it, or you shut down. Then labor. Minimum wage kept rising across the state. Again, not a bad thing in principle. But for a business running on thin margins, every increase tightens the pressure. Now add food costs. Over the past 5 years, food and supply costs have jumped by around 35%. Ingredients, packaging, utilities, everything costs more. And it's not just one increase. It's all of them, stacking on top of each other. Rent goes up. Wages go up. Food costs go up. At the same time. But revenue? Revenue doesn't move the same way. Customers are more cautious. They spend less. They look for discounts. Which means businesses are forced to lower prices. Right when their costs are rising the fastest. That's the squeeze. Costs rising from one side. Revenue weakening from the other. This audio is synthesized using AI technology from VB.VN. And in the middle, your margin gets crushed. This is where most businesses start to break. Not because they made a bad decision. Not because demand disappeared overnight. But because the system they depend on stopped making economic sense. And once that happens, no amount of hard work can fix the math. But even this is not the biggest pressure in the system. Because there's another force. Less visible, more aggressive. Quietly taking a cut out of every single order. The real hit didn't come from rent. It didn't come from wages. It came from somewhere most people never see. Every time someone orders a pizza today, there's a high chance it doesn't go through the store directly. It goes through a platform. DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub. And those platforms can take up to 30% from a single order. Think about that. A business already running on thin margins is now giving away nearly a third of its revenue before it even covers rent, labor, or food. At the same time, demand is getting weaker. By the end of 2025, around 60% of restaurant operators reported lower customer traffic, fewer people walking in, fewer direct orders. And across the industry, about 9% of restaurants are now at risk of closing. That's not a small fluctuation. That's a structural warning sign. Because when you put it all together, something very important becomes clear. The money didn't disappear. People are still ordering food. They're still spending. But the money is no longer staying with the businesses that actually make and deliver the product. It's being redirected. From the restaurant to the platform, from the operator to the system sitting in between the customer and the food. And that changes everything. Text-to-speech platform by VB.VN. Because once the flow of money shifts, power shifts with it. So now the question is no longer about struggling restaurants. It's much bigger than that. If the money is moving somewhere else, who is actually winning in this new system? This is not a competition between restaurants. It's something much bigger. Across New York, the same pattern keeps repeating. Not just in fast food. Target is shutting down locations. Walgreens is pulling out of entire neighborhoods. Pizza Hut is closing hundreds of stores. Wendy's is doing the same. Different brands. Different products. Same outcome. Stores disappear. Lights go out. Neighborhoods lose another piece of daily life. And when the same thing happens across multiple industries, it's no longer a business problem. It's a system-level shift. Because what's really happening here is a quiet war between two models. On one side, physical retail. Stores that rely on location, foot traffic, and local demand. On the other side, the platform economy. Digital layers that sit in between the customer and the business and take a cut of every transaction. One is tied to real estate, labor, and fixed costs. The other scales without owning any of those burdens. And in that kind of fight, the outcome is almost predictable. Physical stores get squeezed. Platforms expand. Which leads to a critical realization. Fast food is not dying because people stop eating pizza. Customers are still there. Orders are still happening. But the system around these businesses has changed so much that they can no longer survive inside it. They're not losing demand. They're losing control. Control of pricing. Control of customers. Control of their own margins. Audio content produced by VB.VN. And once that control is gone, the business becomes unsustainable. So this raises a much deeper question. If this model no longer works in one of the richest cities in the world, what exactly is New York turning into? This is not about fast food. It never was. Because if you zoom out, something doesn't make sense. Papa John's is not going bankrupt. The brand is still alive. Still expanding. Just not here. Instead of growing in New York, it's opening new locations in places where the math actually works. Lower rent. Lower labor costs. Fewer layers taking a cut. Same pizza. Same brand. Completely different outcome. That tells you everything. The business didn't fail. The environment did. Because capital doesn't disappear. It moves. It flows to where it can survive. Where it can grow. Where the numbers still make sense. And right now, that's not New York. This is the part most people miss. New York is not losing businesses because companies suddenly became weaker. New York is losing businesses because it's becoming harder and harder for those businesses to exist there at all. The cost structure, the regulations, the platform layers, all stacking together until the only logical move left is to leave. And once that pattern starts, it doesn't stop at one company. It spreads. From fast food, to retail, to services, until the entire economic base begins to shift outward. So the real story isn't about closures. It's about relocation. A slow, quiet migration of money. Synthetic voice by VB.VN. Out of one of the most important cities in the world. And that leads to a much bigger question. When the businesses leave, when the capital follows, what exactly is left behind? What's disappearing is not pizza. It's infrastructure. Fast food was never just about convenience. It was affordable food access. It was entry-level jobs. It was the daily rhythm of entire neighborhoods. A place where people could eat cheaply, work their first job, keep a routine that made city life function. And when those places disappear, the impact goes far beyond one storefront. Because now, everything becomes more expensive. Food options shrink. Job opportunities at the bottom disappear. The cost of simply living in the city goes up. And in this shift, there are clear winners. Platforms win. They take a cut from every transaction. Low-cost states win. They attract the businesses that leave. But others lose. Urban workers lose stability. Small operators lose their businesses. The middle class loses affordability. And once that foundation starts to crack, the question becomes unavoidable. Can a city survive when the basic economy that supports everyday life no longer works?